Hello. Today we're going to talk about what exactly are twin flames. So the thing that you hear about twin flames all the time is that it's the same soul. It doesn't matter who you ask. Everybody says it. Everybody. No matter what it is that they are telling you to do about your twin flame, right? That seems to be where everybody kind of has a different explanation for you, a different story, different advice to give you about what to do about it, right? Everybody's got different answers for that. But the one thing everybody says about twin flames is that you're the same soul. Everybody says it. Everybody agrees on that. And side note, if we are all in agreement about what twin flames are, what's the problem? Like why is there so much confusion about what to do? Well, I'll save that topic for another day, my friends. Today is going to be a scientific answer for twin flames, and when I tell you what it is, it's so obvious. Like when I finally figured out my current theory about it, I was like, wait, why didn't I think of that like 6 years ago? Now, let's talk about this for just a second, because I'm going to also share with you how I drew these conclusions, how I came to these conclusions. And I guess you could say it's empirical observation. Now, empirical means observed. So for example, the sun rises in the east, right? And if someone was to say, well, how do you know that? How do you know the sun rises in the east? I don't know. If I go outside at 6 o'clock in the morning and I look east, there's the sun coming up, right? It's empirical. Okay. The scientific method is using empirical observation to draw conclusions about why things work the way they work. So yeah, I can see that the sun rises in the east. That's empirical, but why? And so we make more observations, we conduct more tests and this kind of thing, and eventually they figured out, heliocentrism, the earth revolves around the sun, and the earth is spinning, right? And so now we know. So the first thing that I ever noticed about twin flames, you guys, was this. This is another thing that everybody is really aware of, is that there is this push-pull between you and your twin flame. So let me explain my diagram to you here. There's the black, which is the physical body, right? And then there's these lines, and then there's the chakras, and there's these jagged arrows. So the lines, the chakras, and the jagged arrows, that's my way of representing the astral body. So you are body, mind, soul, right? Okay, so let's talk about those different components for you to get what twin flames really are. And by the way, why this is very important is when you understand why your twin flame is running from you, when you understand how this works and why this works, and again, that this follows physical laws. That's what I'm going to show you today. This is proven science, okay? When you understand why this works the way it does, you can shut down the running and chasing with your twin flame. Okay, so let's talk about those three components, body, mind, soul. So the body, we're pretty clear what that is. The mind, okay, a better term for the mind is astral body, right? So thoughts, what we think of as the mind, right? Thoughts, emotions, metaphysical energy, chakras, and the ego. And I mean ego in the mechanics sense, the functional sense, not the pejorative, like the insult, like, oh, well, you're in your ego, not like that, but the ego, the retained thought and emotional patterns, okay? It's a memory storage system. It's a memory storage cloud, the ego mind. It's a bunch of retained thought and emotional patterns. And it starts to constitute your sense of self right around the age of 7. And even conventional psychologists are going to tell you that, right? So it's this sense of identity that you develop. You could call it the personality. Spiritual teachers call it the separate self. And I've made videos about why we use the word separation, also union and detaching. I've made videos specifically about that. If you'd like to go check it out, I'll link it down below for you. That video too. That's a spiritual teaching which is based on kind of what I'm explaining to you right now. And remember, what I'm talking about in this video is function. We're not talking about meaning. Meaning is fine, but it's subjective, right? It's something that makes you happy or sad, perhaps, right? I'm talking about function. I'm talking about this. Right. Now, getting back to this. This little cloud up here, well, this is supposed to represent the soul in heaven, or the energy part of the universe. And I've got some very good news for you. If you're new here and you think that sounds kind of mysterious, like what is the soul? What exactly is that? Well, I just made a video about it, and I did that on purpose because I knew I needed to remake this video. What are twin flames? I needed to remake this video. So I made a video just about what the soul is exactly. What that is, okay? And I'm gonna link it down below for you. It just posted like 4 or 5 days ago. It's called How the Soul Works, and Reincarnation too. So check that video out. I do a deep dive on exactly what that is, okay? So that's body, mind, soul. Now, the mind, the astral body, works on a system of duality. And again, I'm not making anything up. I'm not creating, oh, this is my idea. This is what I think. No, this is empirical. This is observed, guys. These are the laws of the universe. So in spiritual circles, people have always referred to kind of the way that the universe functions as duality. Also, the mind, the astral body, it works on duality. Well, in the science world, they have a word for that too. They call it relativity, right? Like Albert Einstein. You've got a this and a that. You've got a greater and a lesser, a higher and a lower, more energy, less energy, right? Or you've got here and there. Those things are relative, okay? So we're all kind of talking about the same things. Now, the soul is non-duality, okay? And the soul is a fractal holographic reproduction of the source, right? So that's why I have this called the source. And again, if you want to know what I mean by that, just go watch my video, How the Soul Works. What that is, it is a wave of probabilities, and it's non-duality. It's uniform. Real interesting topic. But in science, they have a word for it too. They call it singularity. So single, not dual, not relative, single. So we're all talking about the same thing, spiritual teachers and scientists. And you'll be very happy to know, my friends, that there are an overwhelming number of scientists talking about this stuff right now, how consciousness appears to be non-local, which means it's out there somewhere, and that consciousness is fundamental and irreducible in our universe. Like, where did the universe come from? Well, first you had the consciousness, the source. It created the mental universe, and then from the mental universe came matter. And I'll just tell you this real fast. This is something I talked very deeply about in that video that I posted last week called how the soul works, that science is right now demonstrating that the universe is mind. So go check that video out, guys. It's real fascinating. And these people are serious. These are very serious, prestigious, highly respected physicists and mathematicians. Not just some guy in his basement or something. Okay? And this article came from the Scientific American magazine. I don't know if any of you, some of you know what that is, and so you know that that's kind of a big deal, that they're having this conversation. They're not having this conversation on television, however. Now, this is the first thing I ever noticed about twin flames, that there is this push-pull. And you've all heard about that, right? So, your energy travels to them and pushes them away. Your energy travels to them and pushes them away. But it's your metaphysical energy, mental, emotional, metaphysical energy. Okay? That's what's pushing them away. You focus on them, they focus on anything but you. That's the push-pull. The mind is duality. So, you've got this polarization at the astral body level with your twin flame. That's why they run. That's why if you're doing like all of these, you hear about like all of these different kinds of like healing techniques. You got to do healing. You got to balance your inner feminine and masculine. You got to do the violet flame chant. You got to heal your inner childhood wounds. You got to clear your chakras. And why are we doing those things? To get my twin flame to stop running. How's that working out for you? Yeah, it's not working, is it? It's making things worse. And then they just tell you, well, you got to do more healing. No, guys, if you're doing any of that stuff to get your twin flame to stop running, if you're doing any of that stuff for your twin flame, they run. And again, that's what's called separation. There's me and there's you. There's me and there's other, and that makes a we. We are separate. That's where that word really came from. That's out of the Zen teachings. That's not really a twin flame word. Again, I made a video about that too. I'll link it down below for you. Twin flames, separation consciousness, unity consciousness, and detaching. So this is why there is this polarization. Now, you have been calling yourself divine feminine. And your twin flame, you've been referring to them as divine masculine, but it's really energy. It's not gender, okay? And I've had a couple of people go in the comments of my YouTube video and go, well, I thought that the masculine was the positive and the feminine was the negative. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I know that there's this abstract, kind of like new agey teaching about feminine and masculine and how the masculine is positive. By the way, that's not really rooted in any kind of actual physical laws of the universe. Just side note. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about energy. So if you're watching, you're what everybody calls divine feminine, right? And I am too. My twin flame, who is a woman, is what you call divine masculine, but it's what you call it. And I'm calling on you today to stop using those labels. Those labels are not all bad, the feminine, masculine labels, but what they're really trying to do is point you at a deeper underlying teaching called duality or relativity, right? So delete gender. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Gender has absolutely nothing to do with this at all. Just pretend you never heard of gender. So for the people that are going to say, well, Kurt, I thought masculine was the positive. That was this weird new age teaching I heard. That's not what I'm talking about. Delete gender. Just forget it like you never even heard it. Okay? It's energy, guys. It's energy. And again, what it is that I'm explaining to you is based on actual physical laws of the universe. So that's why there is this push-pull. You are more energetic. Your energy travels to the negative. And I'm not talking about electricity. If there's an electrician in the comments going, well, in electrical systems, sometimes you have things that move from the negative to the positive. Nope, nope, it's not what I'm talking about. If you hop on Google, I've done this video a few times, can you tell? If you hop on Google and you type in, what question would you ask? I guess, what makes positive positive, or what makes negative negative, right? Like I'm not talking about electricity, okay? I'm talking about energy systems, like as a rule. Energy systems as a rule, right? Energy systems as a rule, what makes positive positive is it is more. What makes negative negative is it is less. And that's why we have that naming convention, positive and negative. Like when somebody came up with the terms positive and negative, how they came to that terminology, why that terminology was invented is, well, we have one that's greater and we have one that's lesser. And the universe wants equilibrium. It's always going to be going from positive to negative. Generally speaking, in energy systems, just do a Google search, fact check me, whatever. You're going to find this is the law of the universe, right? I'm not talking about electricity. I'm not talking about feminine, masculine. Just cut all the confusing stuff out, guys. This is just regular, just energy systems, how they work. Fact check me on it, right? It's not debated, is what I'm telling you. It's not debated. In all energy systems, energy flows from positive to negative. So let me give you an example. You're standing in the middle of a big room, and in the middle of the room, you squirt a perfume bottle a whole bunch, like 20 times. So you've got this energy mass of particles in the middle of the room, but there's no particles on the outskirts of the room. Those particles are going to diffuse and move around into the room until they are all equally distributed, right? That's called diffusion. Why? Because the universe likes equilibrium. So to create equilibrium, energy travels from positive to negative. Here's another one. All right, you ever seen one of these? An hourglass? So this is positive. Why? Because it has more. It has mass. You can see the sand kind of moving down the hourglass there. So this is the naming convention. And I don't know why some people get in the comments of my YouTube videos and they go, well, actually, Kurt, right? And I'm like, dude, just do a Google search. Like, I don't know why I have to prove this. But it's okay. It's okay. It's the internet. That's what you're going to get. It's all right. But yes, the naming convention, that's where that came from. Okay, so your energy travels to your twin flame and pushes them away. That's why that happens. When you're focusing on them mentally, emotionally, or metaphysically, they run. They run, guys. And that's why they're doing that. That's why that's happening. Now, this is the first thing I ever noticed about twin flames. That there's that. It's hardwired too. It's permanent. It doesn't switch. And by the way, here's another question that I get all the time. Well, Kurt, I stopped talking to my twin flame, so I'm the runner now. No, you're still chasing. And by the way, runner, chaser, that's not a thing. But here's the thing. The reason you blocked your twin flame, the reason you stopped talking to them is because you're mad at them. They're not reciprocating. They're not going to be your boyfriend or girlfriend. So you got mad and you stopped talking to them. And now I'm the runner, right? And some people think it's feminine, masculine, or runner, chaser. No, it's energy, folks. Energy. And again, the reason that some of these people, when they say that, they go, yeah, I'm the runner now. The polarity switched, Kurt. No, they didn't. The reason that you're doing that is because they're not reciprocating your love for them. they're not going to be with you. And you're mad, so you stop talking to them. That's chasing. They're not doing what you expect them to do. They're still running. And by the way, they're not watching twin flame videos. Is your twin flame watching twin flame videos? No, you are. You are the positive polarity. This doesn't switch. So I just wanted to put that in here and point out, because those are the common questions that I get about this, and that's fine. But it's easy to poke holes in them. Now, I have had a few other hypotheses about why this happens, and you can see them in some of my older videos. I'll go ahead and link those older videos down below for you. I went ahead and put those older videos as unlisted on my YouTube channel because the hypotheses that I came up with turned out to not be the correct hypotheses, right? So this is the scientific method. You construct a hypothesis, test it out, right? Analyze the results, and if the results don't match, then you try again. And I've done that a couple of times, guys. And where I finally arrived, are you ready for this? What twin flames really are? Like why is there this polarization? Why the push-pull? Why? That's what I wanted to know. I've been trying to figure this out for 6 years. I know that there is a polarization. It's empirical. You can observe it. But I don't know why. I finally figured it out. Your twin flame is your past life. Serious. And guys, this explains so much. So much. And I'm going to show you how I arrived at that conclusion. And by the way, when I arrived at that conclusion, I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that 6 years ago? But I'm really glad that I went through all of these trials and tribulations because it shows the soundness of my thinking here. Okay, it follows the scientific method. So these older videos, I've taken them off my public YouTube channel because I just don't want them showing up in a YouTube search. Like when somebody goes on YouTube and does a general YouTube search, like what are twin flames? I just don't want them showing up. But I'm going to go ahead and leave them active to where you can click on the link. So I'll put them down below for you. They're unlisted videos is what that means. So they don't show up on YouTube searches, but the link is down below. You can still click and watch them if you're curious. My original theory was, well, maybe what's going on is the soul needs to incarnate in 2 bodies. It has to polarize at the mental level. Maybe there's a reason it has to do that. Like maybe there's a reason that the soul, there is a positive incarnation and there is a negative incarnation where, in other words, the astral body is either positive or negative. You know, think of it like do you guys, some of you, most of you probably are old enough to remember film cameras, right? Film camera. A 35mm film camera. So this camera, I think, was manufactured in 1978. I think you would call it high mechanical technology. These are really good cameras, actually. This still works. I still use it sometimes. But, you know, you wind... oh, the battery's dead. But you wind the film with this little thingy. And then, you know, in the back here, there you put the roll of film. So just in case there's anybody that's like pretty young and you don't know what I'm talking about. Most of you watching remember these things, I'm sure. Now, you put the film canister in the back of the camera, and you wind the film and start taking pictures onto the film. Now you have a photo negative. That's what they call a photo negative. And if you've ever seen a photo negative, it's this weird, like, ghostly image, like black and white. And all the dark colors are white. and all the light colors are black. So it's like the reverse of the way the picture actually is. So like this white oriental blind that I have behind me on the photo negative is going to look black. And then the black frame is going to look white on the photo negative, which is the little strip of film that goes in the back of the camera, right? Well, anyway, I used to think, yeah, maybe it's something like that. Like you got a negative and then you got a positive. So the actual photograph itself, when you would take the film to a photo developer, they would process the film in some chemicals and then print an actual picture, a photograph, which would be the equivalent of positive. And I used to think maybe that kind of explains it, but I never really liked that theory because there's no known laws of the universe that say it has to be that way at all. It was just completely made up, but I was just grasping for straws. I was just trying to figure out an explanation. And for years, I kept saying, you know, it doesn't seem to fit. I would talk to customers, to clients, to you guys in one-on-one Zoom meetings and on my group coaching calls. I've coached over 7,000 twin flames. I've done hundreds of one-on-one sessions with twin flames, and I'm always approaching this scientifically, and it just never fit the evidence. Another theory that I came up with was, well, maybe it's because of the age gap. So about half of you, I've taken polls, I've done surveys on this, and about half of you report that there is an age gap between your twin flame. So, for example, me, I'm 11 and a half years older than my twin flame, right? And I thought, well, maybe that's it. I'm older. I was born first, so I am older. I have more energy or something because I'm older and she's younger. But the problem is only half of you guys said that there's an age gap. And again, I would be talking to people in one-on-one sessions and in group calls, and I could tell that they really did meet their twin flame, but there's no age gap for half of them. So back to the drawing board, right? Back to the drawing board, back to the scientific method. Well, guys, I finally figured it out. And when I figured it out, it was so obvious. Now, for you to understand why it is reincarnation, why they are your past life, we're going to have to go back to this diagram. And again, if you want to go watch the video I posted last week about, it's called How the Soul Works, I explain that the higher self in heaven, or the energy part of the universe, you know, whatever you want to call that, right? Why it is that the higher self is not experiencing linear time. Because it's on this higher plane of existence, P-L-A-N-E. It's on this higher plane of existence, okay? And physics has demonstrated, modern science has demonstrated that on these higher planes, time is not linear. So all of these, watch this. All of these points in time down here are all happening simultaneously from the perspective of your higher self. This is real science. Again, we don't need to make this stuff up. And I know there's this other theory on the internet about how the soul splits. We're going to talk about that because that's not it. And again, that doesn't follow any known laws of physics. But when I show you where that came from, you're going to be like, okay, that's not it. So we'll get to that at the end, like why that's not what it is. And when you find out where that theory came from, you're going to be like, yeah, that's kind of silly. And it's not really based on anything that we know. It's not really scientific, guys. It's not based on any physical law. Well, anyway, your higher self, the reason that people get intuition and deja vu and things like that is because your higher self literally is experiencing all of these points in time simultaneously. So that's your soul in heaven. It's the wave that exists on that higher plane of existence. Again, go watch my video from last week called How the Soul Works, right? Go check that video out if you're curious. But again, science is saying that these higher planes do exist. And from the perspective of those higher planes, all of these individual incarnations of your soul are all happening simultaneously. So we're going to say this is one of your incarnations in the year 1770, the year 1880. This is you and your twin flame, right there. And then this is a reincarnation in the future. Now, time is not linear, right? Time is not linear. And this, I made this diagram to explain people who say, well, I had a past life with my twin flame. Yeah, that's not a thing. And you're talking to a past life regressionist or an Akashic record reader who doesn't understand how this really works. And also, how do you know that they're legit a past life regressionist? So they're going to tell you, yeah, I had a past life, you had a past life with your twin flame. Well, no. I'll link another video down below for you, twin flame past lives. If you want to have me explain that to you, I'll link that video down below for you too. But it's really you and you. It's really you and you. It's all you, guys. Again, the internet says twin flames are the same soul. And again, when I teach this to students, when I teach them how to transcend the mind and instead align with the soul, that's when their twin flame comes back. So the mind is causing your twin flame to run. We already talked about that. That's what this is. Okay? But when you transcend the mind and align with your soul, that's when your twin flame stops running. And they want to talk to you all of a sudden. Okay? Yeah, your twin flame is your soul. So, time in the first person, each one of these incarnations, in the first person, time is linear, right? You experience linear time. You do in the first person, but your higher self does not. All of these individual incarnations are all happening simultaneously from the perspective of your higher self. And again, that's why there is intuition. That's why there is deja vu, because your higher self is pinging you. They're going, hey man, this thing's going to happen. Or hey man, you've been here before. That's deja vu, right? Why? Because the higher self, it's already experienced all of these things. It already is experiencing all of those things, past, present, and future. And again, that's what science actually says about time, you guys. Modern physics is, and actually, this is 100 years old. This is over 100 years old. Albert Einstein is the one that figured it out. Time is not linear, guys, ultimately. You experience linear time in the first person. But time itself, overall, big picture, is not linear. Albert Einstein figured that out. And they've proven it so many times, you guys. NASA engineers, when they send a satellite into space, the clock on board the spacecraft has to be adjusted to go a little bit faster, just a tiny little bit faster, so that the clock on the ground and the clock on the satellite being launched into space don't get out of sync. The clocks are fine when they're both on the ground. They stay synchronized. But when you send the other clock on the spacecraft into space, it starts running a little bit slower. And they've measured that. You guys ever seen that movie Interstellar? Do you remember the part where the astronauts come back from the planet's surface and they've aged 2 hours? But the guy on board the spacecraft in orbit has aged like 12 years. Well, it's because there was more energy where they were. That's really how time works, guys. Time is malleable. Time is malleable. So when you reincarnate, are you going in linear time? If you go to a past life regressionist and you tell them, I want to know my past life, Well, you're going into that session with the idea of past. You know, in other words, like, I'm going to be riding a horse around town. I'm going to be tilling the field. I'm going to be, you know, wearing old lace and using a candle to light my way in my house, right? That's my past life. Or you're driving an old car from the 1930s, right? But again, time itself is not linear. When you do the thing that we call die, you go back up here to your soul in heaven, which is on the higher plane. It's beyond time. You could go back here to 1770 and reincarnate there in your next life. And then you could go here on the next life after that. And then you could go back here on the next life after that. So if you go get a past life regression done, I'll tell you what, you know what you should do? You should tell them, hey man, time is not linear, and everybody kind of knows that. They're going to go, yeah, I've heard that. Okay, what I want you to do is we're going to do my most recent incarnation, the person who I was most recently. And then the next time you go get a past life regression, go, all right, we're going to go 2 lifetimes, most recent lifetimes. And then we're going to go my 3rd one. And then we're going to go my 4th one. And then we're going to go my 5th one. And you know what's going to happen? 1950 birth year, 1870 birth year, 2032 birth year, and then back to 1988, and then all the way back to 1643. And then we're going to go way ahead to the future in 3140. And again, you can hop on YouTube and you can type in like future life progression. And everybody in those videos is thinking of the future in time. So that's what they get. You go into the session thinking that way about time. You're thinking of linear time. So that's what you're shown. But what I'm telling you is to go life by life by life. Now, what is true with reincarnation is the evolution of consciousness. That is true. So if you've lived 100 lives, then life number 1 is going to necessarily have less consciousness than life number 100. Each and every life that you live, consciousness is increasing with every life lived, okay? So again, negative to positive. We're going negative to positive. Less consciousness, more consciousness. And side note, the soul is 99% consciousness. The soul is the fuel tank of the astral body, the mind. That's how that works. Again, I'm talking function, right? The mechanics, the engine. Think of the mind in this analogy as a car engine, and the soul is the gas tank, right? So the mind gets its fuel from the soul. This is why you need to sleep. Eating isn't enough. Or you've got those guys in the Far East that sit on a mat and meditate for weeks without eating, sleeping, or going to the bathroom. How do they do it? Well, they're going directly to the soul. You're not good enough to do that yet. Neither am I. Maybe in another 100 lifetimes, right? But those guys, they can do that. That's why you still need to sleep and eat food. But sleeping is for that. And it's a medical fact that if you don't sleep for more than 48 hours, you die. You need to sleep or else you will die. So what everybody agrees on when it comes to reincarnation is that consciousness increases. Well, guess what? And again, I'm using these as examples, okay? So if you're twin flame and you, if there is not an age gap, it doesn't matter. It does not matter if there's an age gap. I used to think it mattered, and then I asked, right? I asked about that. I conducted research. I did experiments, right? I asked, I started doing studies. I tested my experiment, and it did not corroborate my theory. So I said, back to the drawing board, and I constructed a new hypothesis. And again, this is so obvious to me when I figured this out. Why there is the polarization? Why is there the polarization? Why? Why is there? How does that happen? It's permanent. It doesn't switch. Why? And again, it doesn't matter if there's an age gap with you and your twin flame. These are just examples, okay? It could be your twin flame was born in 1975 and you were born in 1975. It doesn't matter. It could be reversed too. You could be younger than them, right? So these are just examples, but what this is saying is this person in my example here, the last life they lived, they were born in the year 2127. And then the life before that, they were born in 1776, right? That's what I'm saying in my example. And again, you know, reincarnation is just a time machine. Reincarnation is a time machine, guys. You can hop all around in time every time you die. And this explains perfectly why there is the polarization with you and your twin flame. You've lived more lives in the first person. So what you're doing when you interact with your twin flame, you're watching a replay of things that you did in the first person. Your twin flame is literally you. You are the same soul. You're watching a replay of things that you did in the first person. By the way, in case anybody asks, this is not determinism, this is not super determinism, and this does not violate free will. You did everything your twin flame is doing in their body out of your own free will, and you are still doing that today. It's not determinism. It doesn't violate free will. And they're watching a preview of things that they will be doing. They are you. You did all the things they're doing, guys. So, reincarnation does not prove twin flames, but twin flames proves reincarnation. Reincarnation does not prove twin flames, but twin flames proves reincarnation. Now, I'm going to close out with this. The whole thing about the soul splitting. You know where that came from? A literary work by Plato called Symposium, and apparently Greek mythology. So go read Symposium for yourself. And it's all, they love each other so much, and then it's all that kind of stuff, right? Plato's Symposium. Is that what you're experiencing? Here's another thing. In Symposium, Plato does not talk about the obsessive thinking, the sense of meaninglessness, the acting desperate. This is the most desperate situation you've ever been in your life. He doesn't talk about having a spiritual awakening. He doesn't talk about the Kundalini activation that many of you are having. He doesn't talk about seeing repeating number patterns. He doesn't talk about any of this stuff, synchronicities, the dark night of the soul, none of it. He doesn't talk about the spiritual awakening. He doesn't say any of that stuff. It's just all romance, right? Okay, so let's use the scientific method to look at what Plato is saying. Does what Plato's saying match what you're experiencing? No! So what's up with Plato's story, and for that matter, Greek mythology and Aristotle and all the other people that say that the soul can split? Well, it's just romantic prose, guys. It's just like poetry. And that's fine. Plato was great, but that's all that is, guys. Somebody on the internet took that and said, oh, that must be what twin flames are, right? That's where that stuff came from. It does not follow any physical laws either, that the soul could split or anything like that. It doesn't follow any known physical laws at all. And again, reincarnation is widely accepted, guys. Everybody already knows about reincarnation. And most people, they see the logic in my theory. I've had a couple of people that said, I don't know, Kurt. And that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. But I would submit to you that you're going to have to come up with your own theory about this that explains the polarization between you and your twin flame and follows known physical law. And unless you can do that, I'm going to have to say this is the theory, guys. That's pretty cool. Thanks for watching.